in a time when the world moved slower, when letters took weeks to arrive, and the only light after sunset came from candles and stars, there stood a lighthouse on the edge of everything known. This lighthouse wasn't just a beacon for ships. It was a keeper of stories, a guardian of dreams, and tonight it has one final tale to tell. The lighthouse keeper's name was Elias Thornfield, and he had tended this light for 47 years. His weathered hands knew every stone of the spiral staircase, every grain of salt that the ocean wind carried to his doorstep. But tonight, on this gentle autumn evening, Elias was preparing for his last watch. You see, the town council had decided that progress meant automation. Ships now had modern navigation, they said. The old lighthouse was no longer needed. Tomorrow, a younger man would come to install electric lights that would run themselves, and Elias would retire to a small cottage in the village below. But Elias had a secret. In all his years of keeping the light, he had never missed a single ship in distress, not because he was watching the horizon, though he did that too, but because he could hear them. The lighthouse had taught him to listen to the sea's whispers, to understand the language of waves and wind. As the sun began its slow descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Elias climbed the spiral stairs one last time. Each step echoed with memories. The 15th step, where he'd carved his initials 47 years ago as a young man full of dreams. The 32nd step, where he'd sat and wept when the letter came telling him his dear wife wouldn't be coming to join him after all. She'd found love elsewhere. The 49th step, where he'd laughed with joy when he'd received word that his brother's ship had made it safely through a terrible storm. Guided by this very light, at the top of the lighthouse, Elias lit the great lens for the last time. The flame caught and grew, sending its warm beacon across the darkening waters. But as he adjusted the lens, something extraordinary happened. The light didn't just shine outward. It began to show him something. In the beam of light, translucent as morning mist, Elias saw a ship. Not a ship on the water, but a ship made of light itself, sailing through the air just beyond his window. At its helm stood a woman with silver hair that flowed like sea foam, and eyes that held the depth of centuries. Elias Thornfield, she said, her voice carrying the music of distant tides. I am Nerida, guardian of lost souls. For 47 years, your light has guided more than ships. It has guided the spirits of those lost at sea, helping them find their way to peaceful rest. Elias could barely speak. I never knew. I only lit the light. I only did my duty. Nerida smiled, and her smile was like sunrise on calm waters. Duty performed with love becomes magic, dear keeper. Every night, as you lit this beacon with care and devotion, you created something far more powerful than mere light. You created hope. She gestured to the beam, and Elias saw them, dozens of translucent figures walking along the path of light. Sailors from centuries past, their faces peaceful, their forms glowing softly. Some nodded to him in gratitude as they passed. Others paused to bow. These souls have been waiting, Nerida explained, waiting for someone who understood that keeping a light isn't just about the flame. It's about the intention behind it. Your light was different, Elias. It was lit with compassion, tended with hope, and maintained with love. That's why it could guide not just the living, but the lost. Tears rolled down Elias's weathered cheeks. But tomorrow I must leave. The light will become electric, automatic. Who will tend to the lost souls then? Nerida's expression grew gentle. That, dear keeper, is why I'm here. You have a choice to make. You can go to your cottage in the village, live out your days in comfort, and be remembered as a faithful lighthouse keeper. Or you can become the light itself. What do you mean? Your spirit has become so intertwined with this beacon that you can choose to remain not as a man, but as the eternal guardian of this light. You would guide the lost souls forever, but you would also be free to travel wherever lost souls need guidance. The lighthouse would become your anchor, but the whole ocean would become your domain. Elias looked out at the sea he had watched for so many years. He thought of the cottage waiting for him, the quiet retirement, the books he'd never had time to read. Then he thought of all the souls still wandering the vast oceans, waiting for a light to guide them home. Would I be alone? Nerida laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Oh, my dear keeper, you would never be alone. Every soul you guide becomes part of your story. Every light you kindle creates a new friend, and I would visit to share tales of other guardians, other lights, other souls finding their way home. As the night deepened, Elias made his choice. He reached out and touched the great lens of the lighthouse, and as he did, his form began to glow with the same warm light that had guided ships for nearly 5 decades. Body became translucent, but his smile remained real. His eyes still held their kindness, and his voice still carried the warmth of someone who had spent his life caring for others. "I accept," he said, and as the words left his lips, the lighthouse filled with a light more beautiful than any it had ever held. Not harsh or blinding, but gentle and welcoming, like the glow of a fireplace on a winter evening. Nerida clapped her hands together, and the sound echoed across the water like silver bells. "Then let your first task as an eternal guardian begin." She pointed to the horizon where a thick fog was rolling in. "There's a young fisherman out there, lost in the mist. He's been circling for hours, and his compass is broken. His wife is waiting at home, expecting their first child any day now. He needs to find his way back." Elias, now glowing with gentle light, focused his energy into the beacon. But this time, the light didn't just shine, it sang, a wordless melody that carried across the water, a song of home and hope and love. Within minutes, they heard the sound of a small boat's engine growing closer. Soon, a young man's voice called out across the water, "The light, I can see the light. Thank you, whoever you are, thank you." Elias felt a joy unlike anything he'd experienced in his mortal life. This wasn't just duty anymore, this was purpose, pure and simple. As the young fisherman safely reached the harbor, Nerida settled into a chair that materialized from the mist. "Now, dear Elias, let me tell you about the other guardians. There's Mikhail, who tends an eternal flame in the mountains, guiding lost travelers, and Arya, who maintains a beacon in the desert, helping wandering souls find oases of peace. Each guardian has their own story, their own reason for choosing this path. Some were lonely in life and found family in service. Others were heartbroken and discovered that healing others healed themselves. All chose love over comfort, purpose over ease." As Nerida spoke, Elias felt the truth of her words. Already, he could sense other lost souls out there, not just at sea, but everywhere. People who had lost their way in life, who needed just a small light to guide them toward hope. "I can feel them," Elias whispered in wonder. "Yes," Nerida nodded, "and your light can reach them all. Not just this physical beacon, but the light of your spirit, your kindness, your understanding. Every person who finds their way because of you becomes a small light themselves, helping others in turn. It's like a constellation," Elias said, his voice filled with awe. "Each person we help becomes a star, and together they light up the darkness for others." "Exactly," Nerida smiled. "This is the true magic of guardianship. You don't just save individual souls. You create networks of light, webs of hope that stretch across the world. As the night wore on, Elias guided 3 more boats to safety, helped a lost child find her way home by appearing as a gentle glow in her bedroom window, and sent a warm feeling to a lonely elderly man who couldn't sleep, letting him know that somewhere someone cared. With each act of guidance, Elias felt more complete, more himself than he had ever been in life. This wasn't just his new existence. This was who he had always been meant to be. Nerida stayed with him through the night, sharing stories of other guardians, other miracles, other souls who had found their way home. Her presence was comforting, like having a dear friend visit after years apart. "I must go now, but I'll return. The network of guardians stays connected, and you'll never be truly alone. When you need guidance yourself, just call out with your heart, and one of us will answer." "Thank you," Elias said, meaning it more deeply than any thanks he'd ever given. "Thank you for showing me what my life's work really meant." "Thank you, Elias Thornfield, for choosing love over comfort, for choosing to serve rather than to rest. The world is brighter because of guardians like you." As she faded into the morning mist, Elias felt not sadness, but anticipation. He had eternity to help lost souls find their way, and somehow that felt like the most precious gift he could have received. The lighthouse continued to beam its gentle light even as the sun rose, because some lights are needed day and night, and if you listened carefully, you could hear it humming, a soft, wordless melody that spoke of home and hope and the endless possibility of finding your way back to where you belong. Elias learned that morning, as he would learn every day for eternity, that the most beautiful thing about being a guardian wasn't the power to guide others. It was the privilege of witnessing the moment when someone realizes they're not lost anymore, when they see their own light reflected back at them, and when they understand that they, too, can be a beacon for someone else. And so, the lighthouse keeper's last light became his first eternal flame, and the sea whispered its approval in waves that lapped gently against the shore, carrying the promise that no soul is ever truly lost as long as there are guardians willing to keep the light burning. In the years that followed, sailors would tell stories of the lighthouse that glowed with unusual warmth, and how sometimes, when the fog was thick and the way seemed impossible to find, they would hear a gentle humming carried on the wind, a sound like hope itself, guiding them safely home. And if you find yourself lost someday, in whatever sea you might be sailing, remember Elias and his light. Listen for the humming, look for the glow, and know that somewhere a guardian is watching, ready to help you find your way back to where you belong. Sweet dreams, dear traveler. May your own light shine bright, and may you always find your way home. The lighthouse keeper's story ends, but his light continues, eternal and warm, a beacon of hope in an endless sea of stars.